be on the 14th.
Th-
Thursday and Friday,
Today is Thursday.
yes. Brad is not gonna be able to. He's on that,
Okay, are we good to go? Okay, we are back in the commissioner room, and we're going to reconvene our budget hearings. It is 9 o'clock, and if everybody would please rise and let's join in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two commissioners in room. The third commissioner is got an excused. He's at another meeting. So at this time, we'll reconvene and start with planning and building. Mr. Bratton is gone, so Mr. Erdman is going to take over.
All right. Well, you have his budget before you. Having not done planning's budget before, I'm going to. He has a couple of, he's got a couple of sheets here of baseline expenditure change requests, most of which are just due to the just increased costs of materials. Some staffing, training, rise in costs from ER&R for vehicles. And increase in materials for the specialized dressing science that they need, so.
Pretty much
Pretty standard stuff.
what we're seeing in every department. The costs of materials and it's going up.
Here's a fact.
Is that what you're seeing, Tim, too?
I was just wondering how Craig feels about ER&R increasing planning and buildings rates. It's a joke, considering you.
You know,
Say that again, ER&R what now?
I was just joking because he runs ER&R and the increasing rates for planning
yeah,
and building.
but I also pay for it out County Road too, so, it's
Well, I don't see nothing alarming. Do you have any questions, Commissioner Mullen?
I don't have any questions on it, no.
And Tim, you don't have nothing to add except for that snarky remark?
I do not.
All right,
I
well,
did want to point out that
Okay.
I don't know if that was in his, in the documents up there, but he had on the operating revenue total year-to-date for 2023, when he submitted, he only had 192,000. And since then, that's around 400, it's come up to about 431, so.
say that again now?
Oh, in the documents he submitted, he had his operating revenue for the 2023 year-to-date was, as of June, was 192.24, but as of October 6th, that's gone up to 431, so,
For this year?
yeah. I
Okay,
just wanted to point that out.
okay.
Actually, I guess the one question I would have would be on, related to the grant that was received, that was just discussed in the meeting yesterday.
Yes.
Whether, will all of that, so there's not going to be a new grant for next year? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head if that's true or not. I don't remember him mentioning it.
And then just if we would have, if the plan is to have all that spent this year, just to, because it won't move forward or anything, so just making sure that we have budgeted enough next year as well if we haven't spent all of the grant.
Is that the grant you got highlighted on the screen there?
Yes.
75,000? 78,000?
Yes, it's the one that was talked about yesterday.
Yep.
That we had to do a transfer for, because ultimately, the revenues were budgeted, but the spending wasn't. So just trying to make sure that we're capturing, getting enough, of the expenditures in there.
I believe so. I think Derek would have had that lined out well if that was going to carry forth, right?
I just know I think there was some confusion on, I think the thought was that the revenues would come in and ultimately you'd get to spend the revenues again instead of needing to budget both revenues and expenditures. And so, my concern, I guess, is the timing of this and the understanding that,
He's got 2 months to get it.
yeah, whether it was captured right for this budget.
I believe it is, but I will check with him when he returns, and if there's any changes, we'll of course let the board know.
Sounds good. All right, so now we'll move down to Mr. Erdman and Public Works, Solid Waste,
Yes.
and Probation Work Crew,
Okay,
tab 27.
there we go. And I have Sally McKenzie here, the solid waste coordinator, to answer any fine details that the board might want to ask. Looking at it, we don't really have a lot of significant changes in the 15203 on the revenue. It's up, it's down 35,000. On the probation work crew, we've seen an increase from 96,850 to 130,006, and we've received grants, and plus I believe district court is brought us a full-time employee on the litter crew. So. So overall, it's about $5,000 less revenue and expenditure from last year. So that's a fairly normal flux in that budget.
Okay. Any questions? Any more to add, Mr. Erdman? No?
Anything you want to add, Sally? No?
Looks good.
I guess we're good.
Okay, we'll move on down to Public Works County Roads,
Okay.
150.
Okay. So this is, we're an enterprise fund, so our budget looks different from the rest of what you're used to seeing. You have to kind of look at county road budget is in a sense, it is two budgets. We have what I would call an operating budget, and we have a capital programs budget. When they get totaled together, it makes us look like we have a really healthy bottom line. But a good deal of that money is tied up in grants that are specified for specific projects.
Right.
With that in mind, our operating budget is about $6 million, and after taking away for maintenance costs and match that we have to provide for the grant side. There's usually with transportation grants, there's a anywhere from 10 to 20% that the county has to bring to the table for the grant. So after our operational costs and our share of the grants, we come down to having about a balance of $750,000 left, which is basically what our cash flow is.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to point that out because it sometimes when looking at the bottom line, especially if there's talk of a levy shift or anything like that, it really, well, it negatively impacts both sides of that budget, but it is especially hard on the operational budget because that's where that money will come from, is out of the operational budget. So things like road preservation, gravel road maintenance, and it can endanger some of our capital programs too if we don't have the money up front to come to the table. So I just wanted to point it out that the revenue that we get from the road levy and gas tax is really, we live and die on that.
I see a federal / Taylor grazing leases. We have a grazing lease?
Yes, I'm not sure what the details of it. We get a rather kind of, if I recall, that one kind of floats a little bit, doesn't it? Yes, it does. So it's kind of hit and miss as to what we get from it, but we do get some money from that lease,
Okay.
as well as we get a little bit of payment in lieu of taxes
Right.
from our portion of the area that crosses the river.
Yep. Got any questions, Commissioner Mullen? Tim, anything? Looks good. Mr. Gonzalez?
No, sir. I'm coming from Richland from the BCS meeting, so forgive me for being late. But
We know you're busy.
yes, sir. Got more bills on the way from the 911 system, so I'll school you guys up on that soon.
Let's just keep some things to
Yeah, we're
ourselves.
I'm fighting for us.
All righty. All righty, Mr. Erdman, if that looks good, we can move on.
Okay, well,
Unless there's
unless you
anything-
have, I'm happy to answer what questions I can.
Well, do you have any, Mr.
I,
Mullen?
I do not.
I don't either. Looks good.
All right.
We'll move down to, it looks like that was that was 150. Now we're Public Works Motor Vehicle Fund.
Yes.
500s, miscellaneous 153s, 159, 168.
Yep.
Tab 27 still.
This is essentially the, ER in our budget and it's the needs for it for us to maintain equipment and our materials that we stockpile or purchase for later use.
Sales of rock and gravel. We sell the rock and gravel? Or is that purchase? It says sales of rock and gravel.
Road department.
Yeah, so we the materials
it.
get stockpiled in ER&R and road purchases them back out.
Gotcha. All right, that explains it.
Yeah.
Are we still contemplating producing some of our own
Well, I hope so in the future. I'd like to, if we can find suitable
material?
ground and partners, then yeah, I would like to pursue, a crushing contract in the future.
Have you been talking to the Bureau up there at MESA where they're stockpiling?
Yes, we've been talking to the Bureau and DNR over land, and we've got our eye on a piece. But
Good.
things move slow in that world, so we'll keep plugging away at it.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions on that?
I don't have any questions.
Tim?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, well, Craig, I think you've, geez, we got a break already.
Well, I know, I'm just kind of briefing to the point, and
Yeah, your budgets are good, they're tight, that's what we like.
Yeah.
Not a lot of ass, just,
my staff is very good at this. We've been, all of us together have been running county roads for quite a while now, and, we've got it down.
we need to get one of those easy buttons and we can hit that when we have one of these departments come through like this. Thank you.
Yeah, so, were there any questions on the miscellaneous budgets?
Well, I already asked and nobody had any questions.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you all for being here and thank you for presenting.
Thank you, and,
Next we got is HAPO. Mr. Gonzalez, I mean, you're in the room. Do we
Hey,
have anybody else attending?
Timing's everything. No, I'll be the only one, and I'm going to present it with Tim because, Tim's largely up to speed, really more than I am. And I think this year, with the changeover from HWL and some of the fluctuations, and I've been involved recently. That's been in front of the commission, the CLA group, Clifton Larson, Allen. That's been
Tab 30, tab 30.
basically looking at the books. So let me get to tab 30, Commissioner, really quick.
Okay. So you did just have a HAPO meeting the other night. Was there any information revealed there as far as what kind of?
Yeah, there was, Commissioner. Basically, what's happening right now, they're trying to reconcile the books and close it out so SVM transfers seamlessly to HWL. So July, it looked like there was about, let's say, $1,500 in net profit, kind of the same thing for August, but there was a big discrepancy. But there's still things that we're trying to reconcile. So there was about a $40,000 loss in September. I think part of that was due to the $100,000 naming rights were put into some of the profit portion, and then it had to be pulled because it wasn't necessarily supposed to be in there. So, but again, there are some more things that need to be done. So I don't want to say that. That's the final number, but we're certainly looking at that and really trying to come up with a set number. So I'll just go through this as the public can see on their computers. You look at the HAPO subsidy in 2021, and this is a subsidy that we share with ourselves in the city of Pasco. 2021 was $184,000, 2022 $121,855. Last year's adopted budget was $162,50 or $500, I should say. Year-to-date actual, we're at $81,250. So the preliminary budget's going to be the same for the subsidy, and this is basically, and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, we share in the losses. If there's a loss, they subsidize, and they also give a set amount as well, right?
Talking
Tim?
about Pasco, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Correct. So historically, at the end of the year, we do essentially a cash balance at the end of the year. So it's not accrual based, but cash based ending fund balance, and ultimately there's a resolution where the ending year cash balance is supposed to be 500,000. So we reconciled to 500,000. So if we have more, if we wind up the year more than 500,000, then we would cut a check to Franklin County and City of Pasco for half the difference for both.
Above
And-
500,000.
Yes, and if we end the year under 500,000, so if we end up at 300,000, then we'd bill 100,000 to City of Pasco and 100,000 to Franklin County to bring us up to 500,000. So that was for cash flow needs, because certain times of the years can be harder than others. This may be something to look at in the future. As far as, I don't know what the cash flow needs with HWL will be, and so it just may be something to be addressed in the future.
Okay.
I will say that the setup right now too for the 2024 budget is, as you can see in previous years, there's a lot more details as far as what we collected for parking, building rent, all these different things, and the only thing you're seeing now are subsidy payments and then event services. Well, you'll see the same on the expenditure side, that it's really pretty much all just professional services. So the only thing that we're seeing, what we were seeing last year when we started with SVM, was we were only seeing the one payment for the month of an inflow or outflow from SVM. If there was a profit, they would give us money. If there was a deficit, we'd pay them money. And so that's what this line this line is for payments to, this line includes the 12,500 monthly payment that we would make for the contract, as well as if there was any losses. And then this was, if there was a profit that much, they would send us the difference. And so those two lines really captured everything. Well, I think with HWL, I think the plan is that we're going to go back to more the standard where you're going to see more of the details.
Yep. Which
That's
we need to see.
that's the sense that I got, is that we're going to be going much more to this again. And so I think that these numbers are going to change before adoption, but we need to get with HWL, and ultimately, the numbers may get higher or lower too, based on HWL's expectations for what they can do next year as well. So we may not want to. Right now, we've got a $2 million fund or operating, but we've got a $2 million budget. That may need to change based on discussions with HWL as well. I also put in, and this one too, I would tend to say maybe this should be higher, but I had put in a transfer of $50,000 to our renewal and replacement fund. So this is one where, per the contract, we could have been doing for a number of years, but really we weren't doing it to the maximum potential I think that we should have been, because ultimately then City of Pasco would pay half of this. So the idea behind this is we transfer $50,000 to our HAPO renewal and replacement fund, which then accumulates monies over the years for bigger maintenance type options or capital needs, and that's something that we really hadn't been doing to the full extent of what we probably should have been.
Along those lines then, Pasco is supposed to be cost sharing with losses. What about improvements? We put $6 million into the HVAC system. Should we be sending them a bill for half of that?
I mean, more so, I think what we probably should have been doing through the years is using this renewal and replacement to capture stuff like that. So I think this should have been, that's a good question.
Is that a payment that we paid out this year?
Well, Commissioner, we have found some language in a contract that references that Pasco should have been paying O&M costs and sharing those costs with us
Operation and maintenance.
over the years. The question that we have, and we haven't broached the subject with Pasco yet, we've just been talking about it internally. I guess now we're talking about it externally because it's in public, but it's something that needs to be discussed. The question really becomes, after a certain time, if you're not exercising that option or forcing them to do it or having them engage in the process, does it kind of become null and void because we haven't made them do it? Or could they pick it up at this point and say, hey, we've got these tremendous costs, and
Well, they were failing HVAC systems, and you can't have events with failing
yeah,
HVAC
I mean,
systems.
it was a huge cost that we incurred with our ARPA funding. It took, almost half of our ARPA funding.
Yes.
So I know when I was at the City of Pasco, Franklin County approached us, but we decided to put some other infrastructure in. I think with our water system at Pasco, at the cost of, I think, around $9 million, if I remember correctly. So personally, I think Pasco should help us out in the process, especially if you've been out there lately. The structure, it just needs some upkeep work. The bones are good, but the carpets are dirty. It needs paint. Some of the ceiling tiles have leaks in them. Some parts of it's pretty embarrassing. I have to be honest.
Those leaks are supposed to be fixed, so those are old leaks that
Yeah,
are not
and
supposed to be
exactly.
leaking anymore.
So McKinstry has fixed all of that stuff, but now it's more the aesthetics that need to be fixed. So we did a walkthrough the other day, and you go into the event side even, and it's got the original. I want to say it's almost linoleum. Remember that? I don't know if it's quite linoleum, but it's so. The new manager was telling me, and Chrissy Clapper, who's still out there, that when they buffer the floors, it literally will come up in some places and create holes. And when you're having a large event out there,
That's on the trade show side.
yeah, the trade show side. So
They just put a new floor in there a few years ago.
Well, are you thinking the
arena side?
yeah, I'm thinking the event side.
Not the arena side, the other.
Yeah, they were kind of alluding to that it must be 15 plus years old.
No, because the contract went to, is it New Floors in Kennewick?
Let's do a little research.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, they look old, and that, these are just anecdotal.
I mean, time does go by pretty fast.
Yeah,
but I remember them putting a new floor in there. I wasn't in office, so it wasn't in the last 3 years, but
yeah.
would have been.
It's worth
Within
checking
the
into
last
because,
7.
gosh, they look worn, but,
You are right that there was some flooring stuff done at,
because Tim, you've been here, what, 12 years now? So
It was less than 7.
Yeah, that's interesting because, boy, does it look worn out.
So Tim, with that new
in 2016 and 17, there was,
flooring done,
to Great Floors, there
Wow.
was $338,000.
Wow.
well, that should have done the whole floor, I think.
It's worth looking back to see what
16,
exactly
that's
was.
not that long ago.
No, I mean, it's, so they were thinking it was much older, but that's besides the point. So some of the meeting rooms need new carpet. Tim, can you talk about the one fund that we're able to use for some capital expenditures? Was that the same fund you were just referring to, the replenish fund?
I seen it on the.
There's actually a couple different ones
Yeah.
that we've used through the years. To finish what I was saying before, so I have a $50,000 transfer going into our renewal and replacement, which is ultimately would wind up being a shared cost with City of Pasco when you flow it through here, because they pay for half of our half of essentially what we're budgeting as within our budget, and so they would wind up paying half of this because their subsidy would have to go up to correspond with that. In the past, historically, we've had, at one time, we had transfers, we had monthly transfers on this line of $300, so $3,600 a year was what was budgeted. And then at one point, that was increased to $1,000 a month, so $12,000 a year. But when you're talking a facility the size of Hapo, and looking at where we have HVAC needs of $6 million now, I think that those amounts that we were budgeting to transfer into this fund for future needs was pretty low. And quite honestly, for a facility the size of Hapo, $50,000 is probably too low. I put a plug in there, but that's certainly a discussion as to, we can have a discussion of what it should be. But I would tend to say for something the size of Hapo, setting $50,000 aside every year for some of the stuff to come up is probably on the low side. So this goes into, so when this is transferred out, it goes into this fund here, the Hapo Center Renewal and Replacement. So right now we have essentially nothing in there. There's $40. So with that transfer in there that I just put down below, then we'd have $50,000 next year for potential needs. So I did that. This certainly can be increased. The only other, so we've used this to a small extent in the past for Hapo needs, and then the other piece that's been used in the past too has been what I was just showing here was the economic development money that the .09 money. This is what we've used as well for Hapo projects. In 2016, we budgeted $500,000 for planning, capital improvements, renovations, alterations, equipment upgrade, and signage, and then there was. And then we did another 85,000 budgeted for energy study and building upgrades to air conditioning in arenas. So those are we've done that in the past. So this really has been probably the primary place where money has been used for Hapo Center.
Have we been reimbursed by Pasco on those amounts?
On these, no.
Are they supposed to be? It doesn't sound like this thing's working too well together. Sounds like we're paying a lot of the cost and they're reaping the benefits of the hotel motel tax, of the events that go in there.
This isn't flowing, these payments right here aren't flowing through the HAPO Center in any manner. So as they're not flowing through the HAPO Center, we're not being recouped by it. These are just coming through our sales tax for the .09 money.
I think we need to be putting it through they need to be categorized so that we can show
Well,
what we're
that-
spending.
And that's what doing this would be trying
Yes.
to do is creating transfers enough so that we're accumulating money for needs.
Is that where's this 500,000? Should we be running these funds through that $500,000 fund so that we keep taking it down and then bringing it, so that we both replenish it?
Which 500,000? This 500,000?
500,000 that we work with Pasco on.
It's just the 500,000 is, it's just what we want to end the year with. But we,
But
each
utilize
year we
it.
bill them, like right now we're billing them, we're scheduled to bill them 162,500 for this year.
But if we ran them through that account and we put our .09 funds in that account, then we can show them that we're spending this money on HAPO, that they're supposed to be sharing the cost with us, right?
I mean, what we could do is we could increase, if we increase this I guess we need to make sure that,
Yeah, we'd have to-
speaking
we'd-
to
yeah, we'd
Civil,
have to
making
ask them
sure
if they
that
wanna-
sure that this is within the contract and everything. And
Yeah.
From my read of it, it seems like it is, but I think it's a good thing to
We need
ask
legal to
Civil,
read
but.
it.
Yeah, it would be an ER
But you
on
could
our
increase this to, say, $200,000, which means if you increase this to $200,000, it's going to make it so that we need, $75,000 more from each side here. So City of Pasco would be paying more.
Yeah, it's basically a capital improvement fund or an ER&R fund. It's just something that we haven't done over the years to save money, and that was kind of the modicum for not Troy Woody, but I'm having who was the next
Tom French.
Tom French. I mean, I know I've had some conversations with Tom, and that was really his directive over the years was cut, and Tom wasn't able to put any capital expenditures together to maintain the building, and then I think when SVM came, everybody had left, and there really wasn't much personnel. So while they did a good job of just running the facility, there was zero capital expenditures put on the building, and so while we've been cash flowing, that's where you sort of get, well, we've made some money out there, but cash flow is different from really profit. Right. People that run buildings, it just we haven't put anything to stop depreciation. We haven't put anything in the capital costs, and those are costs that over the past few years we really haven't accounted for in our P&L statements. It's been sort of, it's coming in, it's going out. This is what we paid our employees. But the main thing with an 85,000 square foot facility, we have to start putting something back into it, or it's going to just crumble. I mean, it's, parts of it, especially when you walk into the front of it. That's one of my first goals when HWL came to town, and they took over October 1st. Let's spruce up the front of our house. That's our front porch. So there's bricks laying on the ground. I mean, underneath the ticket window. When I got there, so we're fixing some of those bricks. We're going to paint, some of the lines, power wash the sidewalks and the walls, hopefully get some new carpets in some of the spots that need them, and just do really some aesthetic changes when you walk in there. And then I think this is a great idea that Tim's had to replenish that capital improvement fund, just so we have some money if a pipe breaks or we want to do something to enhance the facility. I'll broach. I'll talk with Adam Lincoln over at the city, because I think they should put into this fund too.
Absolutely.
We are partners in the process, so and it's something we could definitely bring up at the next HAPO advisory board meeting.
And you might want to bring up the fact that we have put improvements in there in fixing the roof, and that's why the tiles, those ceiling tiles, is so important to
Right.
replace now, because that warranty on that roof is only good for so long. We need new tiles, because then it'll detect any leak that's still there that they got to fix before that warranty's over.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things I'd like to do, because right when you walk into the Hapo Center, you look up and you see these worn out ceiling tiles. So that's something we've been looking closely at .09 funds, and Tim has been researching. I've been researching. I've been talking with legal. I mean, we could use a good amount of those .09 funds. We are supposed to share them with the other jurisdictions like Connell, Pasco, Port of Pasco.
We have been.
Yeah, and we've been good partners in the process, but I think we've given away the vast majority of it.
Yep.
There's been some conversation about the port has wanted to bond. I think our treasurer's office has pushed back on that just because of the timing and the rates. So the conversation, we've still had it, but it's,
And Mike, if I might add, when we bond, we're putting ourselves on the hook. They're not on the hook. We are.
yeah, they are in some capacity, but so the debt is shared in some capacity, but my understanding of it is your culpability is kind of on yourself. You don't attach yourself to someone else's debt. And Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, because you could do a bond collectively on the debt service, but it doesn't mean if Port of Pasco doesn't pay that Franklin County's on the hook. That was my understanding with it when we had our conversation with them.
I think you're probably right, but I'm not.
Yeah, and it's something, obviously, before we did any of that,
I have to research.
but yeah, just this commission, I know we've been kind of lukewarm to the bonding. Obviously, we don't want to go on the record right now, but it's still a conversation the port is having with us, and they have told us that they don't have any specific projects in mind, but we could accomplish a lot with a bond. But again, it ties us to the debt service, which we won't be able to use for future projects. And I know for this organization, the Hapo Center, I mean, I think it's really been a priority for us to enhance that facility. So I'd like to see a lot of those .09 funds used, because if we got an air conditioning system on the other side, that would be a complete game changer for revenue. I mean, we'd see instant return on investment. If we enhanced, I've been talking to HWL, they're experts on the ice side. They're really into hockey and they know that space. They said they can get immediate return on investment. So, I mean, the things that we could do too, as I researched the issue, is, we could finance a large amount of money and use the .09 funds to pay for that debt service. So we don't have to take a whopping, $4 million from the .09 funds, but we could allocate that, because .09 funds are pretty consistent. What do they pretty typically average, Tim?
A year for coming
Yeah,
out of the
they're
county?
pretty robust every year. It's pretty surprising.
And Tim, you mentioned to me the other day of another fund that we have $750,000 in. Which fund is that? For the Hapo
Oh,
Center?
That's currently how much we have just in the Hapo Center operating fund.
Oh, it is just that operating fund. We have 750,000 in it?
Correct.
Okay. Now, the .09, what does that bring in a year?
For this year, we've got budgeted $2.7 million to collect in sales tax. So in the past, this was used, we had used this to pay for the bonds on the, part of it was paying for the bonds on the Hapo Center. Those are now paid off, but as far as projects like in the most recent economic development plan that I just had up, we had, for Franklin County, we had allocated, like 600,000. There was 500,000 here, and then there was another 90,000 down below for Hapo Center. But there's a whole lot of other projects going to City of Pasco, Port of Pasco. I mean, there's some big dollar items. There's City of Pasco and Port of Pasco, $1 million each. Port of Pasco, City of Pasco, $1 million.
Yep.
So there's been a lot going to other places. I mean, we have used some, the biggest of it being the original, this was in the original economic development plan. So we have used some, but
So let me ask you this, where are we at on those horse stalls? Because I know that there's some equity there that we could probably capitalize on, plus cleaning that up.
Yeah,
The other question with that is the work crew, are they able to go out there and help clean that up?
Yeah, I've talked to a little bit to the new therapeutic court administrator to get the work crew out there. The one issue, there's a lot of dangerous stuff. There's glass, there's all sorts of stuff. So I'm a little trepidatious to send a work crew out there without proper gloves. And the thing that we need, Commissioner, is we honestly need a massive one of those big industrial metal garbage cans. There's so much.
Garbage.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's actually garbage within the stalls, because I think what's happened over the past decade or so is it's become sort of not necessarily a dumping ground, but a place where, hey, let's put this in here.
Yeah.
And then, so there's just, honestly, I was out there about a month ago in the stalls, and I did a whole walkthrough of the stalls. There's glass, garbage cans, boxes, old
coolers.
tools. It's just swamp cool. Just weird things that are out there. So it really needs, I think, a professional service to go out there, clean it up. It's going to take a good 5 days, and then, so I did put a stop when the RFP was going out on the stalls being auctioned off, because I know you had mentioned that it's probably a good idea to RFP it.
Yes.
Because it's a significant amount of money
Yeah,
that it's
equal to
worth.
the Wilson House probably.
Yeah, so I think that's the next step, is to throw.
One caveat here is I was just out there not too long ago, and those horse stalls, instead of being bolted, they've been welded.
Oh, okay.
So this is a whole new disassembly plan now. It's going to make it tougher because the brackets that actually pin the tubing together have been welded
Oh, wow.
to the tubing. So it's made it one unit, because the winds obviously probably
Right.
shook the bolts loose, so they
Yeah.
decided to weld it. It can be managed, because what you can do is you can take cutting wheels and cut the tubing, and then you can put inserts in, and then you can bolt it to reassemble.
Admittedly, I don't know much about horse stalls, being from Miami.
Rocky knows what I'm talking about.
But from what everybody tells me, they have a lot of value, and
A lot of value.
yeah,
And
it's
these are galvanized. They are very
yeah.
nice horse stalls.
so they're pretty good horse stalls. I mean, I've heard from some people that would like to see the track sort of be its old self when they used to have all sorts of ag events out there. But I think the floor prevents that. We'd have to go back. We have the concrete floor now, which kind of really, from my understanding, it hurts the livestock, and it's just not a
Oh,
possibility.
you'd be packing dirt in?
Yeah,
And you'd
and
be
it's-
packing dirt out. Now, that's a heck of an expense.
Yeah, it's a huge expense. So it doesn't seem like a reality from, as I've talked to HWL and other folks, and even the gentleman that's occupying that, who has the sports outfit.
Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff Carvo. I mean, it would be wonderful to have air conditioning on that side, because we could have concerts. You could have events more often in the summer months from, June all the way to, early September even. It gets so hot in there. So HWL has already been approached by several concert outfits that want to do long-term contracts and things like that. So
The other thing is we get those horse stalls out of that area out there. That is a big area too for outdoor concerts. or whatever.
absolutely. I mean, there's that's something HWL has talked about too, is outdoor concerts and
Expansion of the RV park. You got lots of
other.
opportunity there.
Absolutely. I mean, the RV park's one of probably our most successful in terms of profit. That's almost a no-brainer to expand the RV park. The question I know this body has talked about, do we want to be in the RV park business? it's profitable. It's kind of an easy, you know, not to say anything's easy, but, you know, once you have the infrastructure set up, it's, you know, it's kind of plug and play. And Susan Grant's done a great job out there.
Is she still,
She's supposed to come in today, and I believe to present today, but
yeah,
she's
you
still
might
out.
want to give her a holler. Did you already give her a holler? Because when we finish with this, it's her.
Yeah, so she's done a great job out there, and
It is. Because these are not advertised meetings. These are not posted. Oh, he did? Yep. Okay. So I guess that's where we're at. We need to put an RFP together for those stalls, put it out to the auctioneers. And the other problem we have with those stalls is I looked at them, they're not individuals. These are multiple stall units, meaning they share walls. If you try to make them
Oh, yeah.
individuals, you're gonna have to sell less of them because for every 3 stalls, you're only gonna get 2.
oh, interesting.
You know
So
what
would
I'm
you have to sell the whole collective row?
Well, what you'd have to do is you just have to size down the number of that you can offer individually.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Because what you got is you've got inner walls that are shared between stalls. Your back wall is also shared between the
Right.
the two. So for every 3 stalls, you would take the one back wall to finish out the other side, and you'd have to take to finish
Right.
out the other ones inside. So for every 3, you'd get 2.
Yeah, it's,
And the way I counted it up, I think we're 400 to 500. So we could probably sell 300 stalls.
and Tim, my understanding is that
You know,
that the HAPO budget could absorb those funds.
On site as whole?
Sell them whole.
Which funds?
So
And
if
then,
when we sell the
let
horse
keep here.
stalls,
Yeah.
the HAPO budget can absorb those funds
The
in some
talk on that-
capacity.
Well, let's.
It was, I'm assuming they were paid for with HAPO, so they would go back to
Yeah,
HAPO.
so the funds would go back to the HAPO Center to
Good.
fund, you know, whatever we wanted to, infrastructure or,
Could help fund the cleanup.
Absolutely.
If we hired somebody,
absolutely.
but it also could help fund other
Yes,
improvements.
improvements, and that's what we really need. The high priority right now for HWL is really just sprucing up the joint a little bit, if you will.
Yes.
And just making it more welcoming when you walk in, so, I mean, that to me it's an easy fix, and I mean, it would really change the tenor when you walked into the HAPO Center, because right now, you know, you walk, the biggest feedback I've gotten, commissioners, I can't tell you from ladies who have been out there with their high heels. I mean, I'm just being real here, because there's a lot of events that happen. So you have a big event, the ladies are in their high heels, they are in our parking lot, which is so jagged and it's serrated and just messed up without lines. And I had a staff member here who went to a big event, and she said, gosh, the hardest part of the night was just walking through our parking lot in my heels. You know, it was a nice event, and I had to be dressed up, and then I thought I was going to, you know, there was a few times I went, whoa. So we have to get that fixed. I mean, not only from an aesthetic standpoint, but I think from a safety standpoint.
Yep.
Probably shouldn't say this in public, but it's already out there. You know, it's a bit of a safety concern, and we've got to get that. We've got to get that parking lot
Did
fixed.
we get the lights fixed in the parking lot?
We're getting a couple of new lights in the parking lot to make it a little bit brighter. So that's something we're doing. But I certainly would love to get the parking lot fixed. Some of the lines painted up front, a little sprucing up the front and some of the bricks, and power washing that. Few carpets, new carpets here and there, and
I was going to mention that the flooring that we had done in recent years was Portafloor. It was flooring for the arena, portable roll-up flooring.
Yeah, we're selling that now. It was out of Booker's auction here. And some of it, there's more of it out there yet to sell.
This is what we
That was
had
the
spent.
flooring?
This is what we spent money on recently with
Wow.
the.
And what was the company that we bought that through? Was that the
Great
one?
floors.
Great floors.
Oh, okay.
They also put new tiles down in,
Yeah.
on the trade show side, not the arena side, but the trade show side, within the last
Yeah, because,
7 or 8 years.
Tim, that doesn't add up to 300,000.
No, there were some others. I think they were all the same.
Gosh, if that's the case, we should have somebody come back out and look at some of the sections that look worn out. And it might be just from a lot of usage, but
16, that's 7 years, though.
yeah, I mean,
There's
it's a good amount of time, but, and I think the other thing, like those roll-up floors, I believe are outside
There's your
in the baking
VCT.
sun.
VCT, I'm not sure. You guys may know what that is more than I do.
That's
VCT
vinyl coated
floor.
tile.
Okay.
And
Yeah, that's
Carpet
that's
rugs, okay.
40,000 square feet, is that about right?
I'm not sure what the size of the
yeah. Well,
trade
that's
show
about
is.
the size of one
I
half
know
of our
that
arena.
it says demo existing carpet tile. So previous to the VCT, they had those 1-foot carpet tiles down there that they had to go in and peel up.
Yeah. Size-wise, that's about half of the Hapo Center itself, and that event side is about 40,000. So, and maybe it's just usage, but and I think they were assuming that it was a lot older than it was.
The tile, they use it in hospitals and
Yeah.
schools because it lasts
Yeah, but-
forever.
I tell you what, and
7 years doesn't seem like very much use out of it, but
yeah, I don't want to call the folks out here that did the install, but it's it's got.
I think we're doing that right.
I think we are, but there's certain sections that, boy, it just looks like it's from when it opened. So
All right.
we'll have to give them a call, maybe. To
So-
come.
even at that, if it's that recent, you would think they would be able, hopefully, to match
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, I think so. I'll work with Tim to reach out to them because I was a bit concerned because, again, from a safety standpoint, there were a few divots in the flooring that they were like essentially covering up, so people didn't trip. So there's a few things I think priority-wise that we could use those .09 funds with. I think the parking lot has to be a priority.
Parking lot needs to be addressed
I mean, it
before it
does.
deteriorates any further.
It
and
really
you have a
does.
Major expense.
And
I know that HWL was talking extensively about that ice-making machine at the arena.
Yeah.
Could that be used for it also?
Yes, it could. I mean, anything, because basically, the use of .09 funds, it has to fit into our economic development plan.
Creating jobs.
Which it does, and it has to have a job creation element, which it does. So, I mean, we could use the vast majority of it.
Because I also know that they're saying that doors, locks, door handles, talking with Matt McDaniels that
Yeah.
has the hockey club, they said that building needs repairs.
It does. We did a walkthrough of that recently, and that building was not intended for
hockey. No.
It was. I mean, if you've been in there, it's basically not, I don't want to call it an outbuilding, but it's a large metal structure. I mean, the walls are not really designed to have an ice arena in it. So you think about the utility costs and all the cold air that's blowing out of there. So there's those kind of things, and then. And talking with HWL, they think that it can be serviced more for the public. We're missing some opportunities with public skate and those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Yes,
And,
we are.
So I think their vision is to expand the public use a little bit, and how do we manage that more efficiently and work with the hockey association, because I mean we have a robust and really good hockey leagues around here that you wouldn't suspect, and a lot of kids are engaged in that. It's an expensive sport, but I mean I think what we're doing just for the public and for these kids is incredible. I mean, I think we've been incredibly generous, with our pricing structure with these guys and the hockey league, and what we pay in utility cost. So ultimately, it's for the kids, but as you know, everything's expensive, and it's really expensive.
Well, we all see the potential.
Yeah.
And it just takes ingenuity and
Yeah,
a
and-
will and a good partner, and I think we have that in HWL.
Absolutely, and just so the public knows, and we've said it several times during the commission meetings, they are working on that 60-day plan, which they plan to deliver by December sometime, and it's going to have sort of an outline of capital costs that they think we could potentially incur, their recommendations for use of the ice facility, do we prioritize HVAC on the arena side? So they're going to, and plus they're going to look at the parcels because they have that development expertise. So Larry Leisure's done a tremendous amount of developing in the Tri-Cities. So he's going to make recommendations for what we can do with site pads, maybe hotels there. I know the city of Pasco had some of their site pads when I was there. We're thinking about, how do we attract retail or restaurants into, the baseball stadium has a huge parcel as you drive your car in there. So that area has a tremendous amount of potential that is so untapped. So that's why
prime.
I'm excited to have HWL to kind of guide our ship and see where we can go. And this is all under the guise that the contract between ourselves and Pasco expires in April of 2024. So they still do have the option to buy the structure for $1. So that is something they haven't reached out to me and said we're going to do it. They are in the process of looking at the bones of the structure with an engineering firm. I don't know if that's a telegraph they potentially want to buy it. They haven't made any indications
Well, I
at this
think
point.
before they make that offer, they need to get right with us on all the improvements we put into it.
That is a conversation that I think we do need to have, especially on the O&M cost and moving forward and whether because I think whether they buy it or not, we do need to figure out how we share in the capital expenditures because we simply don't have the money at the county that the city has to invest in the capital costs. And as you mentioned, Commissioner Didier, they do get the lion's share of the tax revenue from that. They get hotel motel tax, which we're not afforded. So they do benefit. We're all partners. We do get a share of sales tax, but not proportional. They probably get 70% more than us, Tim, something like that.
Oh, probably at least.
Yeah, it's a good, we get not quite as much. So that's really the HAPO Center in a nutshell. I think,
Okay.
You look at the transformation of the HAPO Center over the years and, there were some lean years and I think I'm excited about HWL and what they can bring to the table from an economic development standpoint. But I do think on the record, we need to use some of those .09 funds to really, and be a little selfish with those and
Let's
invest
wait
in
for HWL's
Yeah.
60-day plan. We'll see where they're at
Yep,
as far as what we need.
absolutely.
Yep.
I will say that over the past 25 years, the biggest negative on the HAPO Center has been no AC.
Yeah.
And it's like having a rowboat and no oars.
It's a good way to put it.
Anyways, just wanted to.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. And I've gone back and forth with Larry Leisure. He would like to prioritize the ice side and also the air. Those are the two things that we're really looking at. And so I think we have to decide, what is the priority for the center itself. I wish McKinstry would have done that side first and put air on that side and then work through the event side. But
Well, I'll just say this. If Pasco truly wants to be a partner in it, they put the air conditioning on that side.
And that's a conversation that I need to have with them, and I will broach them because my understanding, I watched their council meetings on Monday nights. They still have some ARPA funding hanging around, so maybe we can share in some of those. So
All right. Well, that's a good discussion on the Appleton. Go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say, I don't know how it'll turn out with the timing of HWL getting through their 60-day plan versus adopting the budget, because ultimately, we're supposed to adopt the budget. We're scheduled to adopt on December 4th, and it can be extended for 5 days, 5 consecutive days after that. But it's set to be on December 4th on a Monday. With some of the unknowns, I think we're expecting good things out of this contract and everything, but not if we're not going to get information in time from them to plan our budget. I don't know if just the course of action may be even just to double all of our previously budgeted amounts, what we had had before, just kind of double those to make sure that we have a big enough budgeted.
Do you think that'd be enough?
I don't know. I just, it's hard to have any good idea of what the expectations are.
And if we did
Moving
double the
forward.
budget, where would the funds come from?
I mean, ultimately, if they just didn't come in, you wouldn't have the cash to be able to spend. So,
Okay.
I mean, it's not necessarily a huge deal. You wouldn't get the cash, so you wouldn't be able to spend. So, but ultimately, just making sure that I'm just wanting to budget enough too, so that we don't have to. I mean, the risk is if we don't budget enough, like the $2 million might be kind of low, honestly. And so then, the risk is that we have to open and it's not the biggest deal in the world, but we'd have to open the budget during the year and advertise for 2 weeks to grow the budget.
Well, let me ask you this, if we can't set this budget, is that gonna limit us to using the .09 funds?
The .09 funds is a separate fund outside of
Right.
any sort of
So
Apple
we can go
operation.
to the .09 funds anytime we want without the budget.
They are budgeted. We have them budgeted in the, there's a separate budget for that we have that, I mean, it's,
And the thing that we need to determine, commissioners, and I've had some conversations with Jeff Briggs in the PA's office, is if the funding has to go through, there's basically the .09 fund committee that you vet different expenditures through. Where it's not clear is if they actually need to sign off on that. Ultimately, the Franklin County Commissioners are the ultimate authority on .09 funds for any jurisdiction in Franklin County. So we are checking on, to Tim's point, we have it locked into our budget, but statutorily, it's not clear whether it has to go in front of this body in order to use it. It seems
Well-
like it would be a good practice,
I
but
think they are an advisory body,
yeah.
but they can't determine the decision. We determine the decision.
Right. Ultimately, you guys, the commissioners of Franklin County, determine that. So,
it has to be in the economic development plan.
right. So I think there is some flexibility there.
Okay.
I think it's good practice to go before that body because we're all partners and
Exactly.
it'll probably be perceived as, well, you're going around process, but ultimately, we're trying to determine that exactly. So the committee got off to a late start this year. So the applications are out in the various jurisdictions like Connell, Pasco, Port Pasco, Colotis. Mesa is not. I don't think Mesa's participating. They didn't have a participant. And Basin Cities, it's not an actual city, so it's basically a township. So they don't have a city council so they can't really bring anything before the body.
And their post office is in Mesa.
Yeah, so if they want to incorporate, I guess they could, but
Well, along those lines, Mesa, can they even put together a city council?
from what I understand, they have been putting together a city
They are.
council.
I hope so.
Yeah, so they've been getting that together.
Good.
And I'm taking that from media reports, and I read an article probably about a month ago, and I believe they are getting it together. But I'll check on that and give you guys a report.
So go ahead, Tim.
So I have estimated that we'll have, I think I did this a little high because some of the changes that were happening in this, but I had estimated that we were going to have carry forward of about $8 million next year and then sales tax of 2.8 million. So that would mean that we would have about $10.8 million to spend next year. There are some, I need to verify these projects. I think there's only, I have 4 listed that have already been approved. I think I need to check the work I did on this recently because I think there may only be 2 that are still eligible now. I think like maybe these $2 million ones are still on there. I'm not positive about, but I need to double check
Okay.
these numbers. But these are the only ones that potentially have approved projects right now. Everything else is off the table, I believe. And so that would essentially leave, a little more than $8 million available next year.
But with the addition of the taxes, it'll take us up over 10, right?
Well, that's including that. So there's the 10 million, and then with this spending here, we would have this as an
That would be
available,
left.
this would
Okay.
be an available
Okay.
balance. And I think the plan also says that we're supposed to have a certain number, I think it was either 500,000 or $1 million of reserves for imminent project needs or something, some language like that.
So you can't get below that in the
Stuff.
account.
Yeah,
Right.
we weren't supposed to go below that.
Okay.
As well, and so.
All right, well, thank you very much. And I think we've pretty well hashed that out, and I see Miss Grant here, so we'll move right into the RV park. How are you doing today? Welcome.
Fighting the cold, but I'm here. Let's not get Teresa sick, though. She doesn't need it.
Tab 31.
You have any questions?
You're good.
I think of,
Okay,
the only two things that we've added this year is the auditor's office started charging, so I have that figure in there. And then the other one was IT. They started charging, so no, those are fees. And the other thing that we've changed since this was posted was we did have the rate increase that starts in January.
Okay.
So that is not reflected here. So that should add another probably 40,000, I'm guessing, to the revenue.
And what would that, is that just resident rent, transient
Resident
rent?
rent, yes.
Resident rent,
Yes,
another 40,000 to that?
I'm guessing, yeah, it's hard to know, but yeah.
So Susan, you said IS started charging you for internet service, you said?
For their services, I guess, for their,
Tim, can you explain that? Because that's a question I've gotten from some newer staff members, not Susan, but what is the logic of charging interdepartmentally? Because I've recently had that question from the new HAPO Center manager. He said, I thought we were all one team, and why is your IS charging us? And we charge, for instance, public works charges if they do an oil change to the sheriff's office or to our office. Can you let the public know the logic of that? Because people hear that and they go, what the heck? You guys, I thought you were one team.
Well, this fund here is an enterprise fund, so really to get the true cost of this, we would, it makes sense to charge to, it's a separate fund from our main operating fund, current expense, the general fund. Plus just capturing the true cost of this operation, you would want to
Right.
include all of those costs in there to really see whether it's profitable or not, or just whether it's breaking even. Within current expense, you'll see some billings between departments, and once again, it's still kind of the same thought process of all of the within the BARS manual. So from the state auditor's office, they publish a BARS manual, budgeting, accounting, reporting system guidelines for us, and within that, there's different functions within the government have different codes that are built into it. So I'll bore you with a little bit here, but so if you within our fund structure, so you have like the auditor has a 514, which is financial services built into it, and as you go deeper, it's 514.23. So that it just means that it's a finance function, whereas the sheriff has a 521, so a 521.20 ultimately is for public safety. And so you have different ones that are public safety, you have different ones that are finance. And so ultimately it's putting the cost under the function that that's happening. So it's just trying to get a true accounting for functional cost, I guess, as you would say it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that explains it well, because if you're
Absolutely.
gonna, if some part of the courthouse is gonna put on an event and the sheriff needs to be there and he's bringing personnel in, you gotta be compensated for that, because you're bringing them in, and it may be time and a half, or maybe whatever, to
Right.
get that accomplished. And the same is true with this, is that if he's gotta overview all these funds and do the audit on it, it
Absolutely.
takes time and effort. I can see this.
Yep. And once you get it, it kind of makes sense. So I just wanted the public to kind of know when we hear.
Everybody's got a budget in
Right.
this courthouse, and when they go over their budget, they're on the hook for it. And but if they're
Exactly.
going out there and they're auditing the RV park, then they need to be
Right.
compensated for it.
Absolutely. So thanks.
That's what it is, so. But they are 2024 budget's 11,326, and it was just 5,600 this last year, Tim? Is that because it wasn't a full year? In '23? Oh, it says adjusted. Oh, I'm on the wrong one.
Which
20
one are we looking at?
The auditor accounting services. Oh, this is the first year. They budgeted 5663 and they adjusted 56 for a total of 11,326.
I think last year was I think last year
Last
was the
year
first year that we, I think last year was the first year that we billed, and it's not showing up. And I think it may have been because I think it was late in the year, and so ultimately we weren't able to get it into the fiscal year. So I think I think you may be seeing it in. I'd have to go back and look, unless it was in a different line.
So Susan, have you had any backlash on the raising of the parking, of the rates?
Maybe one or two, but I just explained to them that, rent around the area has increased, and I just explained that we're trying to be
Even?
or above, from private parks, and they seem to be satisfied with that, so.
Okay. And we're still
Haven't
full?
lost anybody
We're
due
still-
to it.
We're
Yeah.
still full?
Yeah.
Good deal. Well, it's pretty cut and dried, and I don't see no capital.
They keep costs down
Yeah.
and not spend it.
Susan, can I ask you a question? What's your opinion on expanding the RV park? Because there's been a lot of conversation about open space that is potentially in the stalls, and we've got a lot of parking space. It seems like there's a lot of potential there to expand. I guess kind of a multi-layered question.
Well, I think
What would it
that's-
take infrastructure-wise, and do we have the space, and how much more personnel would it take?
I think that's gonna be up to White Leisure, the group there, and what their ideas of that. I could probably put 22 more spots in where the horse barns are, but we'd have to configure where roads would go
Right.
in. That would be the trick. You'd have to put in sewer, electric.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure electric's there somewhere, but, it's an expense. I can get you totals on that if that's
Yeah, it
what
would be
we're
a nice little
thinking.
project.
Cause I
So
would
fun.
love to make it bigger and,
You need water too. You need water, sewer,
water and
electrical.
sewer. We would probably need a new, the restroom that I have, would have to upgrade it to have showers inside. So a little bit of upgrades, but it could be done.
But nobody's looked into the cost of putting them in.
No, not yet. It's one of those things, we all pontificate like, yeah, it'd be great to put more stalls out there, but obviously everything has a cost. But it would be a good project to really look into and talk about. I know HWL has alluded to, they haven't really committed to say, oh, we really want to manage the facility, but they've said, we're interested, but and that would be a good project for you to work on with them and build that relationship.
But then again, they're talking about a new ice rink there too, so.
Yeah, so they've got a lot of things that they're thinking about. So I think there's what they want to do, then reality, so of what we can do,
But you've
The
got,
new ice rink, where would they people park? That's what I was thinking.
but you've also got other areas where you could grow the RV park too, correct? Out there in the parking lot?
Where I have power and water only right now, that's the only thing, is to add sewer would make it a little bit nicer. If you really want to broaden the search, the parking lots across the street.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, those actually belong to the Hapo Center, so, I mean, that's an idea, because they're just kind of growing weeds right now.
Yep.
Really want to put some capital in there, it can be done. There's room.
Yeah, and it seems like the demand is high, and people are moving into RVs more often now, and I'm sure the demand. How often do you get people inquiring about a space?
Every day.
Yeah,
I mean, I have 3 people moving in today.
Yeah.
So, every day.
Will that put you completely full?
There's wiggle room, because, 6 months term, so everybody's term ends at different times. So it's a constant effort of,
That makes it tough, the 6
it makes
months.
it fun.
Does it? Keeps you busy.
I like it.
Okay,
you know?
good.
So,
oh gosh, I had one more question, but it's not too important.
It's pretty minuscule. I saw that your vending machine sales were down. Did they move the vending machines, or?
it revolves around hockey schedule, because the vending machines are in the hockey office,
Okay.
in the lobby there. So
Right.
when they're having tournaments, it'll go up when it,
Sure, no, it makes sense.
Depends.
Like I said, it's very minuscule. I was just curious.
yeah. And then the other variable is the laundry ones, the laundry proceeds. Depends on the RVs, a lot of these newer RVs have their washer and dryers in the units, so they're not very many using so it varies. But,
And your space rent out there includes the electricity.
no.
So they're all metered?
Monthly rent, monthlies, you get charged electric, rent plus electric. But overnighters, we have a higher price to
Accommodate
account for
the
that.
electricity. So those other units, they have meters at every stall
Yes.
to
every
see how
stall.
much that they
Yes.
use? Okay.
Yep. No, it includes water and, so we don't charge sewer, we don't charge water. It includes cable TV, it includes, internet, and then the space rent.
So if you're on a monthly, then okay, never mind. Just nightly is electricity.
Nightly, you don't, not charged electric.
So monthly you are.
Monthly, you are.
Okay.
How are the new resident managers doing? And I know there was a large discussion about LNI. I've been meaning to follow up. Did we get the LNI
Yeah,
on them?
Raul
Okay,
sent
good.
me an email yesterday, and we
Okay.
got them signed up. so
Okay,
yes.
perfect. Are things going well?
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, they're doing good. Very attentive and eager, so
Good.
it's good.
It's a good hire.
Well, we appreciate you coming in on short
Okay.
notice.
Yeah,
Thank you
no
for being
worries.
here,
Thanks.
and
Thank you,
everything
guys.
looks good.
Yeah, Susan does a great job. Everybody,
Yep.
everybody really loves her. So thank you. I appreciate all your efforts out there.
No problem.
Thank you.
Let me know if you want me to work on that
Yeah, that'd be
project.
great. Yeah, let's connect, and then I think what I'd like you to do is actually get to know HWL, and this might be a good project for you to work on with them so you guys get to know each other and just kind of build that relationship.
The GM,
Yeah, no, actually, you know what? I'll connect you with Larry Leisure,
I met Larry.
Marshall Myers, and then Wes Harris. Next time they come through town, we should all meet, and then in the meantime, we'll kick around some ideas. All right, thanks a lot.
Well, Tim, that moves us down to this new fund, accumulated leave fund. You want to go over that?
We started the discussion the other day. I think one of the things that was mentioned was having it, moving the tribal money that we received into that to help,
Jumpstart it.
yeah. I mean, ultimately, would it's still coming from current expense, so, I mean, but I guess it dedicates that funds to that, which is a use it can use, and so, I mean, it's not very limited, but you can't use it for lobbying, so, yeah, at that point, if it goes in there, we know it's not being used for lobbying because it's paying for this, so, you know, that's something that can be built into the policy. If that's what the board wants, we can start the early funding with that, if that's the consensus of what's desired, and then that would lower at least the initial FTE fee for the fund.
That's, you understand, Rocky, we got 2 payments coming in from the tribes. One is this year for 152 or 154?
Yeah, it's right around there, 152, 153.
So we can put that into this accumulative leave, so when people want to take if they have a bunch of days built up, they can take it,
All right.
and it's just a way to get it started. And then next year it'll be self-sufficient, correct?
We would still be, yeah, so even next year, we would transfer in, I'd recalculate the cost per FTE, and so there'd still be some transfers coming in from departments next year, I would anticipate, but it would definitely lower the per FTE count, and then we can kind of, I think after next year, we'll start to have a better idea of how people are using it and stuff, and to get an idea of what the cost will be for each year moving forward. I mean, part of it's unknown just because it's based on how many people are going to be leaving the county and stuff, but
So go over this again, accumulative leave. If they accumulate so many days, then they're eligible to put in for this, correct?
so there's a lot of entities that do this kind of thing. Ultimately, you have your balances of PTO that you have, and the thought process, just looking at some of the other policies that we've seen and everything, is having some sort of baseline to where you're only eligible to cash out, say, if after cashed out you still have 200 hours of PTO remaining. So not everybody would be eligible to cash out because you know, you'd want people to still have some time afterwards. And so if you did something like that, then someone that has 40 hours of leave that hasn't, you know, that just started here, they wouldn't be able to use it. You'd have to have a cushion, which would, you know, help them, I guess, in the future, as if they had some issue where they had to go out for an extended period of time. You still have PTO that you haven't used, so it kind of safeguards them and us from issues like that. And so you would create a minimum. I think the number we were using was $200 hours that you'd have to have after cash out. So someone would have to have, like, if we were allowing 40 hours of cash out, you'd have to have 240 hours before, 200 hours after the cash out to be able to be eligible for cash out. And so we could open it up once or twice a year. You could open it up once before summer for summer vacations, once before Christmas for Christmas spending, or you could just do once a year at Christmas time. However we decided to do it, but then it would also pay for people leaving the county. So when people leave the county, they have, whether it's retirement or just getting another job, they would, you know, most of the time people have balances when they leave. And so this fund, instead of being coming from the department, it would come from this accumulated leave fund. So departments would be paying for a quarterly fee into this fund, but then the fund would pay for the person when they depart. And so it would make it, for the departments, it would make it for those people leaving that have a large balance. You know, someone might have 500 hours that they're cashing out in a high hourly rate, so it winds up being a $30,000 payout. Well, instead of that going to the department, they'd have the streamlined known the budgeted amount of what's being paid to the accumulated leave fund, and then the accumulated leave fund would pay that $30,000 hit instead of the department.
Hopefully we don't have too many of them or else it'll be gone.
Go fast.
Well, I think it's a great fund, and I think it's a way to keep those accumulated leave hours down to the 200 mark.
Well, and that's, that's one thing that it does too, is it reduces the county's liability, because well, and not to mention that people would be, you'd be potentially cashing out hours now where, whereas in the future where someone's probably making more money because they've been here for a longer time, they've received COLAs, they've received steps, and so you have a higher potential payout in the future where they're making more dollars per hour, and instead you're cashing them out for 40 or 80 hours now at a lower rate.
Some we did at the city of Pasco for Christmas bonuses. So you take out of your PTO fund and then the summers. So it was a nice little incentive and a nice little way to buy gifts or offset some costs before school clothes are bought. So, and that was the same strategy, was rather than accumulate these massive buckets when somebody leaves, it's almost like a little fund that we can, it's almost like a mini bonus throughout the year, but it's money we've allocated into a bucket anyway, so you might as well take advantage of it when you can.
Is that where Pasco had their set out, was 200 hours too?
I can't remember exactly the amount, but we had that option to cash out. I want to say it was at 40 hours because it was a pretty good amount, because we bought most of our Christmas gifts with it, and we thought, oh, this is great. So we did it the couple of years that I was there, took advantage of that quite often. So it was a good incentive because people knew they could rely on that, and you kind of time it out. In the Christmas holiday season, you kind of time the check out so they get it. Obviously, you don't want to give it to them after Christmas. Well, you could, but
It might be more beneficial.
yeah, it's probably beneficial when they've maxed out the credit cards. But Pasco tried to get it, if I remember correctly, a little bit before Christmas, so you had some time to, buy some gifts. And so yeah, it's a good plan, and I think something really nice that Tim and Dwayne were working on.
The other question I had is a point you brought up, Tim. So if somebody was to work for Franklin County and they accumulated these funds at a couple grades lower by the time they retire, these funds are all paid out at that higher amount, that higher wage earning amount?
Yes, you're paid out at your current grade and step.
Yeah, so this benefits the county in keeping them in the grade that they're in to pay them out at. Okay, it makes sense. I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, I would be too.
All righty, so that completes the day today.
That's it.
We're done.
Yes, and there's actually no department scheduled for tomorrow either, so really there's, I can meet with Mike over the coming month or so to discuss balancing ideas and stuff, and I'll work on I'll work on the fund balance again to try to get a better idea of what our fund balance is going to look like. I did want to point out that we have I did want to point out that on November 14th, which is a Tuesday, we have a public hearing on revenue sources. So this was set on Tuesday before the board had switched the meetings from Tuesday to Wednesday. And so this was already, put out there as Tuesday. So at this point, we've kept it as Tuesday. So just wanted.
So all three commissioners will have to be here on November 14th at
Correct.
8 a.m.?
Yes. Well, no, I think it's,
9 a.m.?
I don't know that there was a time state. I think that's just I think it's a 9 a.m. I think it's just regular meeting
Let's
time.
put it at 9, because that's usually when we have our
Yes.
meetings.
Yes.
So put that on your calendar.
That's what I'm doing right now.
November 14th.
So there's that, and then also on, so that's Tuesday, and then the adoption of the budget is scheduled for
Monday.
December 4th, which is a Monday. And this hearing, so it's a public hearing and adoption of final budget. It can be extended for 5 days, so it can be extended throughout the week until we get it balanced, but that's scheduled for a Monday.
Well, couldn't we tentatively schedule that for Wednesday so that we could keep our meeting and our meeting?
This one from my reading of the resolution, and once again, this was already in the original documents as Monday, but from my reading of the RCW and talking to the prosecutor's office, it looks like this should be on a Monday.
Okay,
That it's
we'll make it work.
required to be on Monday, and then can be extended for all the days
December 4th.
afterwards.
At 8 a.m.
You'll have that on our
It'll be
calendars.
9 a.m. as well. It's just regular meeting time. That's just the time that auto fills in my calendar.
Okay,
So 9.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then,
yep,
so for 3 weeks, they're going to be.
okay. And she'll have that on your calendar too.
All right.
You do a calendar for Rocky?
Once
We're working
IS
on
give me
it.
access, I don't have access.
Oh,
Yeah, they need his permission.
makes it nice. She prints me out a calendar. It's really nice.
And Teresa, I'm not sure the likelihood of it. Well, I don't have you probably have the meeting room booked for this revenue hearing already.
I'll double check right now.
But then for this week as well, I don't know if we need to book for this week as well, just in the case that from
moves.
December 4th on, just in the case it's extended
Yep.
each day, and then.
Just put
so
it
we-
down for every day of that week.
So we may need to just plan on it, and then if it's done early, great, but otherwise.
How many hours do you suggest me to block it?
Oh, that's a great idea. Commissioners, what do you think?
10 minutes. We're gonna make quick decisions and then we're getting the hell out of here. What do you think? Probably an hour or so?
I would
What do
say-
you think, Tim? You're thinking way too much, Tim.
I mean, I guess I'd lean towards 2 hours, but then, ultimately, if we don't need 2 hours each day, we can,
Can adjourn,
just come
yeah.
back the next day or whatever, but at least it's, I mean, do we have to, I guess for Teresa, you're worried about just how long to book the room for?
Yes.
Because for the meeting itself, we probably don't need a deadline, but I guess if we're trying to make it so we're not blocking others out from using the room.
That way I can talk to Maria because, her BOE hearings that week.
We have quite a few of those. Board
I-
of Equalization hearings.
Oh, yeah. I guess on Wednesday, on Wednesday, if we went, it would have to be immediately following the
Yes,
the
Commissioner.
regular meeting.
Either that, or we could maybe check that commissioner meeting, and maybe that would be the only time we'd ever, just not have a commissioner
Yeah.
meeting if there wasn't that much stuff. on
That's
the
always a
agenda.
possibility, too.
You know, have commission meeting on Wednesday.
If there wasn't enough to go over in that meeting, we could probably just push it off to the next week and then have a big meeting. But I like having meetings every week because transparency and openness to the people. So with that, if we are done, then I will adjourn the budget hearing meetings. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Commissioner.